Hi everybody, and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole, and it's by user What Does This Mean Though? Am I the a-hole for wanting my husband to start paying more for our housing? Hi y'all, for reference, I am 29 female and my husband is 30 male. We've been together since I was 20 and got married when I was 26. We moved in together when I was 25, we were splitting our rent evenly. I was making $65,000 a year and he was making $80,000 a year, and we live in a large US city. It didn't really make a huge difference in my budget versus his to split rent 50-50 for $2,600 a month rent. However, things have changed. I got pregnant a few months after we got married, which we were so happy about and wanted. I didn't want to not work, but I wanted to be home with our baby, so I found a full-time remote job in my field of work. The downside is I took a cut to my salary from $65,000 to $50,000. We continued to split the rent in our apartment. My husband, between being 26 and 30, has received a number of raises and has switched jobs. He is now a senior business analyst, making roughly $195,000 a year. Since we were having a child, we were going to need a bigger apartment. We found a 3-bedroom apartment for $4,000 a month. He still wanted to split the rent evenly, despite my protests, and despite my wanting to try to find a smaller apartment for less. In the end, I sort of let myself get walked over because he really is such a smooth talker and I do love him anyway. Flash forward 2.5 years and our rent has increased to $4,400. My take-home pay monthly after taxes is roughly $3,600. I am paying $2,200 monthly in rent. I am also taking care of our baby and our home, doing chores and cooking daily. My husband works from 8 to 6, but typically doesn't get home until 7. I am burnt out. I barely have enough money per month to do things I enjoy. I feel like I am financially struggling while my husband is living a life of luxury. Yes, he does take me out on dates and on vacation, but he doesn't seem to understand that this is not enough for me. I spoke to him 2 days ago very seriously, and when I asked about trying to split rent based on our income and pay an equal percentage of our income so that it is more fair than fully equal, his reaction stunned me. He asked me why having $1,600 extra a month wasn't enough for me. I told him I'm not saving anything. He told me I should spend less on extracurricular activities, which makes me laugh because what extracurricular activities? All I do is work, cook, clean, shop for the house, and raise our child. I told him I am basically working 2 full-time jobs at once and I need help. Then he asked me if I'm suggesting he pay me for being a mother, and that stunned me. I really had no response to that. Anyway, he told me that this is the lifestyle we agreed on when we moved in together way back when. However, he doesn't seem to understand, or rather doesn't want to understand. Now he is mad with me because he thinks I am being selfish and has been acting cold to me these past few days. I am getting the itch to apologize and take it back like I always do, but I really feel I am right here. Am I the a-hole? No, OP, of course you're not the a-hole. He is the a-hole and you're not being selfish. You are right. My question to him would be, apart from paying 50% of the rent, what else do you do here? Because from what you tell us, OP, you are basically doing everything and you're not just paying half of the rent. Apparently, you're paying everything else. You haven't said otherwise. So I'm gonna assume bills and food and all of that stuff come out of your paycheck. Does he at least help you out taking care of the kid, or is he just making money and that's it as far as he's concerned? If he doesn't do anything besides making money and paying his half of the rent, then he absolutely sucks as a partner and as a father. Now, on top of this, OP, I'd like to say that it is okay for you to also have a life. You should be able to have extracurricular activities that fulfill you. I mean, from what I understand, you are enjoying being a mom and you're enjoying working from home and all that, but you need some time to yourself, which is totally understandable. Maybe he should get off his ass and help you out being a parent. And what is your judgment? What would you say in this situation? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community judgments to see what they said. And Chovy Mac and Cheese says, what? Not the a-hole, and at this point I seriously hope you consider a marriage counselor. It seems that your husband views you as less like a partner and more like a roommate willing to bear his children and clean up after him. There is no reason he should be forcing the mother of his child, who both works and stays home full time to take care of his baby, to pay half of the expenses when he makes 3 times more. This is the life you signed up for is a terrible justification because you were at a very different place when you met versus now. How much longer are you willing to be a doormat while he lives and spends lavishly without considering your efforts or your child? And Opie responds, honestly, I am at my breaking point. Deleted says, not the a-hole. This is a strange financial situation. You are married and in a partnership, your finances need to reflect that. Your hubby also needs to be way more flexible. You are going to live your whole lives together by a set of rules agreed when you were 20. Is that how he still expects you to live at 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and 80? I'm assuming when you made this agreement, you hadn't factored your kids in. You guys need to sit down and work out a joint budget and start using joint accounts. And Opie responds, yes, we made this agreement when we were making similar incomes, didn't have kids, and weren't married. Also, he wasn't paying his half of the rent when we lived together as a young couple. His parents were, to help him build savings. Moonlight Racer says, not the a-hole. I just can't imagine loving someone and being okay with them spending 60% of their income on rent, especially when I can easily make their life more comfortable. You aren't even asking him to cover it entirely, you're just asking for a fair split based on income. Your husband is acting like he's your boss and not your husband. The comment about paying you for being a mother really sealed the deal for me. He doesn't view this as a marriage, but as some sort of business transaction. I swear, not all of us business analysts are this cold-hearted. Additional information from Opie's comments. All I am trying to say is that we are not roommates, we're married. Not to mention, he is the sole beneficiary of his millionaire parents. I came from poverty and worked to get where I am. I do try to keep that out of the arguments though, as that is his business and not ours. I just want to make it clear I am not a gold digger here. I did choose to work. But it also makes me wonder if I didn't work, if he'd help me at all. I mean, he could pay for the entire rent and still make more money than I do, and then some. I don't want him to pay for the whole thing, but I can't live up to his lifestyle and I feel like I'm drowning. He doesn't help with the chores of our child at all, and he wants me to raise our children. He wants another kid, but I really can't afford that. And now he wants me to get a business degree, but I can't stop working to do that since he doesn't help me financially. He doesn't get that we are not roommates. I have tried and tried to explain to him that we're supposed to be a team, but then he goes off about gold digging and how just because he will have millions in inheritance doesn't mean that I shouldn't work for what I have. He doesn't call me one directly, but he goes off on how his parents always warned him about the signs of a gold digger and that he should always be with someone who can be financially responsible. He doesn't seem to get that we cannot live up to his lifestyle if he wants to be this way. He gets to go to a happy hour and go to fancy lunches and has a very comfortable job. He has a big inheritance and doesn't really care about his savings as much as he cares about being able to be a member of a country club or pay for whatever he wants when he wants. I feel like I'm drowning. As I said, he wants another child, and if things were different, I would too. But I am burning out and my days are starting to feel purely hollow. I think I need to talk to a lawyer because I honestly do not fully understand our prenup. I feel stupid for not having really gone over it in full before marrying him, but I was in love and figured the money wouldn't matter. Hindsight is 2020. Opie's edit. Thank you all for all of the responses. I can honestly say I did not expect to get this feedback. I am honestly overwhelmed and cannot reply to all of you, especially while I am working, but I wanted to update some things here. I love my husband with all my heart, and it is heartbreaking for me to read these comments and realize that I am being taken advantage of. I need to figure out the best way to approach this issue and solve it before it gets too far. I want to work this out, and the fear of being alone is haunting me. Yes, I did sign a prenup that was overseen by his family attorney, My husband comes from extreme wealth and I was young and stupid and went with it, head over heels like my mother always said I was. As for his family, we get along great and they love me. It's very confusing because they are such incredibly generous people and they are family, but they don't know about our financial situation because my husband and I believe that our marriage is private, and I would feel like I was betraying him by telling them. I'm sorry I cannot reply to all of you, but please know I am reading all of the comments and making the plan of approach with them. For those asking about the dates and vacations bit that he pays for, I have asked him numerous times to help lighten my financial load instead of going on these trips and dates, and he has refused. He said he can do what he wants with his money, and if he wants to take us on vacation, that is what he will pay for. If I could afford vacation, I would pay. In fact, when we were in a more even financial situation, unmarried and no kids, I paid for almost all of our vacations and dates because I love to treat people and I can't do that anymore. I also do not have bad spending habits. I worked my way out of my student loan debt 2 years after graduating. I saved $60,000, but by the time we got married, I have that all in my retirement, which I am thankful for because I can no longer contribute to it. This has nothing to do with how I spend. I am actually pretty frugal when it comes to shopping, especially since I prefer to keep things cheap for my budget. Alright, well, the community agrees that OP is not the a-hole and the husband is acting like an a-hole, particularly because he doesn't seem to think he's married to OP, or at least that's what we're all getting from this. Also, OP gave us a lot more context to understand her particular situation. Now, before we move on with the update that is 2 years after the original post, let me remind you once again about my other playlists like this one that all have stories with updates on them. Now, let's move on with the update. I sincerely apologize for taking so long to return to Reddit and write an update on this. A lot has happened since. For those who don't know, this post was originally written at the end of February of 2020. The world, therefore after, fell apart. Things were not good with me and my husband at the time of this post. I want to preface this by saying we are still together to this day, and we've welcomed a new child to the world, this time in a much healthier environment. COVID changed a lot for me, along with the intense virality of the last post. Neither my husband nor I got laid off or furloughed, and we were and are so thankful, but my husband moved to work from home. That perspective shift changed a lot for him when he says what I had to deal with day to day. Things I could never properly communicate about how difficult it is to work while raising a child and what I brought to the table that he could never see. Despite his newfound appreciation for me, I still found myself resenting him. It was in June that I finally proposed that we go to couples counseling, after doing my own virtual therapy sessions since March, from which I learned about why I let people step over me based on my childhood and past and how to overcome that. To my surprise, my husband agreed, and so we've been in weekly counseling since, even to this day. It helped him to get to the root of his fears and address why he has trouble trusting me financially, which had less to do with me and more to do with what he was brought up believing and has been instilled with. After coming to the point of telling him I wouldn't want to continue building a family or a life with him where he watched me struggle from luxury, with the help of our amazing counselor who guided us, my husband was willing to adjust our lifestyle to be more equal. I'm not saying everything was or is magically perfect. I know people wanted an update where I left my evil husband and took my baby to start a new life. But I did marry this man for a reason. I saw the good, and past this struggle we've had to overcome, he's become the man I knew I'd married. We now have a joint bank account as well as our own on the side. We each put 2/3 of our income into the shared account and get to keep 1/3 for ourselves. I'm in a new job now and making much more money than in the original post. Not that this affects the relationship, but so people know my 1/3 is enough for me to enjoy. It's still a road to recovery, but we have more trust between us and are no longer living a 50-50 lifestyle. Again, I'm sorry for not updating sooner, but the past few years have been a lot for us and everyone. Thank you all for your support and advice. I promise I wouldn't be sitting here typing this without it. Well, I'm going to count this as a positive update. Your husband was able to get context, to understand, to see things from your point of view, OP, and that made him change his mind, which is great. Now, in my opinion, it should have just been your word versus him having to see you struggle in order to change his mind. But hey, a win's a win, right? And like you say, OP, you guys are still working on your relationship. So all the best in the future to all of you, and congratulations on the new baby. So on this note, let's finish this video off with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user The Anecdotist135. Boss says I should quit because I like spending time on hobbies, so I did. I was working for a startup engineering firm working as a piping design engineer. But since it was a startup firm, we didn't have a lot of manpower, and the ones we had weren't as qualified either. I was one of the very few qualified enough to handle a team of my own. The boss trusted me with almost everything. I was like the second in command after the boss only because I was managing a lot of things on the side on a volunteer basis. Things like paycheck balancing, client meetings, quality assurance, documentation, and other stuff which he should have hired someone else to do. I was good at it, and he took full advantage of it by giving me things to do that never were under my job description. One day, he had this bright idea that we should revamp our website to attract more clients, and he gave this project to his nephew who just graduated from college as a developer of sorts. After a week or so, the nephew came up with the first draft of the website, and the boss was fairly disappointed as it didn't look anywhere near to what he expected. He then called me in and asked me if I knew anything about website design. At that time, I was very much interested in UI or UX, which is user interface and user experience, and was doing an online course to learn about it, so I told him that I'll see what I can do. I spent the next week fully making proper information architecture, wireframes, and color guidelines so that the nephew could pick up and build the website from scratch. In the end, the website looked futuristic and the boss was pretty happy. But during the week, my other responsibilities were put in a backlog and it just kept piling on. I knew I would be able to cover it once I'm done with the website and didn't pay too much attention to it. The next week, my boss caught up with the backlog and called me into his cabin. He started yelling at me for all the responsibilities that I didn't attend to. I calmly told him that I was working on the website and it was not a big deal. Told him that I would clear it out as soon as possible, but he wasn't happy. He asked me why I spent so much time doing something that isn't even my responsibility. I told him that I was learning about user interface and user experience and was pretty much interested to learn more. I obviously never thought about pursuing it as a career because frankly I was a mechanical engineer by qualification and didn't think jumping to IT would be easy. The boss snapped and told me that I should quit and pursue my hobby as a living. He said that only then I will understand how lucky I am to have a job that pays. I kind of got offended because 1, he doesn't even pay me the worth of things I do for the company, and 2, he knew I could cover and yet took this as an opportunity to discipline me. I stepped out of this cabin, went to my desk, put in my resignation, and went home. He called me a couple of times asking me to revoke my resignation and then made other people from the organization call me to convince me to come back. I wasn't having it at all. It's been 2 years now, and I decided to pursue user interface and user experience as a career, and I'm working as a product designer in one of the biggest organizations in the country with a pay that's almost 300% more than what I was getting as a mechanical engineer. Also, the company was shut down because they had to pay a huge penalty for not being able to deliver the last project I was handling. Then COVID hit, and they had to reduce pay for all the other staff, which led to people leaving. Eventually, the company went bankrupt for not keeping up financially after COVID. Well, OP, looking at this whole story, now I'd think that your boss actually gave you the best advice possible. And good for you for chasing your dreams. Thank you for sharing, OP, and take care. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.